going to thank the little people that made this movie a big hit?
Thank the backup singers. And we have. I mean, not only the backup singers.
Are you going to bring
who
Charlie
sing.
Love and all the singers to the Academy Awards?
So far, I've gotten 4 tickets for singers.
Oh, good.
So Darlene, Mary, Tata, and Judith are going. Lisa's on the road with the Stones in Tokyo, and I'm trying to get her off of a gig to fly back for 2 days.
Well,
see.
Morgan Neville, just tell people your background. Then we're going to talk about
Sure.
this great documentary.
I've been making documentaries for a long time. I'm a native Southern Californian, and I made films about art and film, but music is really my specialty. I grew up as a musician and as a journalist and as a filmmaker, and then I put all those things together and ended up doing music documentaries. And for me, somebody who is just kind of died through and through music geek, it was an excuse to do something to justify my record collection and my hours spent in record stores when record stores existed. And it's been incredible. I mean, I've made films about the Brill Building, about Sam Phillips and Son Records, Stax Records, Muddy Waters, Hank Williams, Iggy Pop, the Rolling Stones, on and on. So, and I've gotten to meet so many incredible heroes of mine doing this work.
Has this been your most successful documentary?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really taken off. I mean, people love it.
And it's been, one of the most successful docs of all time. I mean, it's the #1 documentary of the year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's unbelievable. And it's one of the people always ask me, which maybe you're about to ask, is, Did you expect it? And
Did you expect it?
Good thing you asked.
Yeah.
The one singer who I wanted to interview was Clyde King. I don't know if anybody remembers her. She sang with part of a group. What were they? She was in the Star Is Born, the Barbra Streisand movie. She's Barbara's backup singer in that, and she sang on everything. All the Steely Dan and Dylan, and on and on and on. And she was just somebody else who people talked about a lot as being kind of one of these amazing.
Why wouldn't you do
singers.
it? Why wouldn't you want to be in the film?
She wasn't in good health at the time. That wasn't it. And I kept trying to schedule, and it didn't happen. And then finally, the film had so much in it already. And then when the film came out, I got a message from her saying, "Why didn't you put me in the film?" I said, "Why'd you cancel on me 8 times?"
When you go to a studio and you have a documentary, because we see great documentaries here. The Cinémas Palme is great at that. Is it hard to raise money, or because you had all these names, or do you go to a studio and say, we're going to have so-and-so, Darlene Love and Bette Midler and Bruce Springsteen and...
No. I mean, every documentary is funded differently. And I've done every which way. You've done the grant route, you've done the broadcasting route. Studios don't really pay for documentaries unless there's some huge commercial angle on it. And I've done documentaries about big artists. And in those cases, you can get a Rolling Stones documentary funded. A documentary like this only happened because Gil and a group of investors said we want it to happen. Nobody else would have paid for this documentary. And in a way, it's because like most music artists, when you want to make a documentary, there's a whole group of people that are stand in line to profit off of it. And you've got managers and agents and publicists and music labels and music publishers, everybody who wants it to happen. And backup singers have no power in the industry. Nobody's going to make money off of backup singers. And therefore, nobody has any interest in helping make a backup singer documentary. Ultimately, we realized that our greatest tool in making this film was guilt. So, we perfected the argument of it's time to give back to these people that have enriched your lives and your music for so long. And once we got a certain number of people on board, then it kind of just rolled on from there.
Well, I hope this is a compliment, but it's hard for me to call this a documentary because to me it's just a fun movie about people. Good. It's like just a movie.
That's good. I
don't. A documentary called "The Act of Killing," which we saw here. That when you go home, you want to kill yourself. But, I mean, this is great. To me, that's a documentary.
And a very different kind of documentary. And I've been spending this whole award season kind of hanging out with all of my fellow nominees and everything. And I really like them all and like their films. And we all just keep talking about, the D word, documentary. And it gets used sometimes pejoratively, and sometimes it's kind of a label as a very specific thing. And our films could not be more different. I mean, they don't belong in the same context, much less in the same category.
Is it important to you to win the Academy Award?
Is it important to me? How do I answer that?
Give your speech.
It's really, I mean, I've said this because in the beginning, like I said, I did not expect the film to blow up in any way. And, you know, I made a film because I was trying to kind of shed some light on these people who had been overlooked and who had had missed opportunities and bad luck. And this film has done so much for them. I mean, yes, it's done a lot for me, but it's done so much for them. And the joy I'm getting, like just watching them and having them call me and say, guess what, Morgan? You know, it's like, that is the coolest thing you could ever hope for as a filmmaker, to actually be writing a new chapter in these people's lives. And they're now talking about going on a tour together.
Oh, that's amazing. How's Lisa Fisher doing? Because she's got an incredible voice.
She's now working, finally, after 25 years, working on her follow-up album to that one album she won the Grammy on. So she's great, and she actually she's on the road with the Stones right now. She's in Paris. But Trent Reznor, who's in a band called Nine Inch Nails, saw this film last summer and hired her to be his backup singer with Nine Inch Nails this fall.
That's
and
great.
then she did a jazz thing over Christmas. Like, only Lisa can do industrial music, jazz, and the Rolling Stones, and like love it all.
Yeah, well, she's an incredible talent. Who's got a question? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to make a comment. Your movie, which I saw come out last summer in Portland, I think it was, but is the driving force why we decided to go to the Follies late this year, because Darlene Love's going to be there.
Oh, great.
This gentleman's going to the Follies because Darlene Love's going to be the guest star.
Yeah, she's going to be here for a while, right?
My question is that as you see, the rock group from England came in, if you listen carefully, you can hear the two and three part harmony plus the backup vocal, but you didn't, how did you decide on the girl group and the black ones as opposed to any males or session musicians? Because they all get left wanting a larger career than they get.
Can you repeat the question? Because I'm lost. Yeah.
I mean, how did I focus just on these specific types of singers and not the session singers and the male singers and all these other things? And really, for me, what it was since we didn't know, I mean, I didn't know what this world was about, and that's what appealed to me about it, and even though I knew a lot about music. And when I started to research it, I couldn't do research because nothing had ever been done on backup singers. No books, documentaries, no articles, no websites. I couldn't believe it. And so the only thing I could do was interview a lot of backup singers. And so after I did these initial 50 oral histories that I did in the beginning, I kind of stepped back and looked at it and said, okay, what's the story I want to tell? And to me, it was that story of the revolution of these black female voices coming out of the church, finding their way into the studios in the 60s in LA and New York, and changing pop music history and the various iterations of that over different generations. I feel like it was the first word on backup singing. There are so many other things to say about backup singing, and whether it's, you know, James Brown or England or reggae or Nashville, or, you know, there's so many different worlds of backup singing. To me, this was the one that spoke to me. But hands down, the toughest thing about making this film was cutting stuff out, because there were so many amazing people I met along the way, and I don't know if it's a sequel or a book or something, but something more needs to happen on the topic, because I met so many amazing people.
I love how the Ikettes were whores, or prostitutes. Yeah, no, because that growing up, you thought, what's going on here? That was Ike Turner and, you know, the crazy Ikettes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, as you learned the story of these amazingly talented Mary Clayton, Darlene Love, was there a theme that came through you of bad management, bad representation, bad luck, or all of the above? Why didn't it happen, in your view, why didn't it happen for you?
The question is there a theme with all these women? Did they have bad luck, bad management? They just didn't make it. I mean, because they have the talent.
And
was there a
I mean,
theme?
one takeaway is it's not about talent. You know, talent's down the list. It's about ambition, timing, luck, all these other things. Your look, you know, all these things that figure into it. As I've thought about it, it's that, I mean, one theory I've developed is that because they're all so naturally talented, they never had to be ambitious about their own talent. And they just all kind of fell into these careers because they were just so great. And then when it came time for them to be a solo artist, because they were so great that everybody said, oh, you got to put out a record, they didn't know how to be ambitious about their talent. They'd never flexed that muscle before. And I think that was a big challenge for all of them. And the other big challenge, I think, for all of them was that because they're professional chameleons, because they can do anything, when it came time to do a record, somebody would say, okay, you can only do one thing because we're going to sell you as an artist, and an artist can only be one thing at the beginning. And that was really hard for them to figure out what their own voice was as a singer, even though they could do anything. You know, what was that one thing they wanted to do to represent themselves? And I know they all grappled with that.
I guess, did you find bitterness? Is there a lot of bitterness in their careers?
There was shockingly little. And like I said, I think the people who were really bitter didn't last in the industry at all. You know, you can't do this if you don't have a certain psychological makeup. Yes, there's bitterness over specific, you know,
I mean, Darlene Love
producers
must be
or
bitter
record.
about Phil Spector.
But
I mean,
you know, she's one of the happiest people I know. I mean, yeah, she's bitter about it, but I just saw she just gave an interview this week, and she said, you know, I don't hate Phil. You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Phil, and he was a genius producer, and he
Right.
did these records. I mean, and it really, I mean, this is what, to me, the film is about, ultimately. It's not about, you know, I mean, there's the music part of it, but what I learned from them, and this all came from them, was it's not just that they had bad luck and missed opportunities, and isn't it tragic and all this, it's that they're not bitter about it. And they've all come to terms with it and decided to be happy. You know, they've figured out how to deal with the lives they have rather than the life they dreamt of having.
Right.
And to me, that's really the crux of what the film's about.
I learned from your film that I couldn't be a backup singer. Yes, sir.
Will there be a soundtrack?
Soundtrack, there is a soundtrack.
Is there a soundtrack? There is a
On
soundtrack.
Sony Records and Tapes.
Oh, very cool.
It's on iTunes right now.
Oh, it's on iTunes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, way back there. Let's go to the back.
What was the final budget, and what was your biggest expense?
What was your final budget? What was your biggest
Budget.
expense?
I can't say what the budget
They never
is.
tell you the budget in this theater. Yeah.
But I'll say, I guarantee you it's less than you think it is. You know, we actually came up with a really, I mean, music was the biggest single item, but we came up with a really smart way of handling it. I mean, it was kind of amazing how affordable the music was. But what I've realized from having done this work for so long is that everybody, you know, you don't want to pay for rights you're not going to use right up front. And so I just said basically, look, if we do well, you'll do well. And so we just told everybody we'd pay them bonuses if we did well. And they've all gotten bonus checks and everybody's happy. So up front, we didn't have to pay all that much money.
Was it hard to get some of the archival films?
I mean, the film wasn't, so the music is the hardest by far. And we got virtually everything we wanted. There were only 2 songs we couldn't get. One was a Beatles song,
Right.
which I'm not surprised about. And one was a Stephen Stills song, Love the One You're With,
Oh, sure.
which would have been good. But
Who were the backup singers for that?
Mary Clayton sang
Oh,
on
really?
it. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's a great song, great message.
Yes, sir.
The editing was superb, and I was wondering if you felt that you should have or could have been nominated for editing.
So
The
the editing was
gentleman
superb.
wants, he said the editing's superb and
Now, I just
should
have to
be
take this
nominated for
moment to
editing, but
mention-
explain what happens when you're a
Doug
documentary.
Blush, one of our editors, his parents are supposed to be here. Are they here? They're. So they're
Well,
our
your-
editors' parents.
your
are there,
son did
so
good.
there you go. Yes. And I loved the editing. I mean, we all worked so hard on the editing of the film. Documentaries don't get nominated in editing categories at the Oscars, but we did win the Editors Guild Award for Best Documentary Editing.
This film, I enjoyed it immensely. It makes me appreciate backup singers all the more.
This
Thank
lady
you.
now appreciates backup singers. Last one,
We all
what
do.
was the biggest surprise making this? 'Cause I think that people that make documentaries, you go in thinking this is what it's gonna, right? You have a start, a middle, and a finish, but something has to happen that you go, whoa.
Yeah, well, you always want to be surprised, you know, and I think the thing you learn to make good documentaries is don't get stuck in your preconceived notions. You know, go with the punches and whatever surprises you. And if it's interesting and you find people, you're telling people about things, then that's something you should follow. I had all kinds of assumptions about backup singers in the beginning that were completely wrong.
Right.
That they weren't as good as lead singers, or they maybe were technically good, but they didn't have any character or character to their voices. And I very quickly learned I was just completely wrong. And that made me happy.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Was it 2 weeks from tonight?
2 weeks from tonight.
Tonight. We're going to thank all the little people and everything that happened.
Thank you.
Morgan Neville, 20 Feet From Stardom. Thank you so much, Morgan.